Blue Wire Hustle proudly presents All Eyes on Cleveland. I'm your host, Brad Ward. Today is Wednesday, April 14th, the year 2021. Big day for the Browns today, signing Jadeveon Clowney to a one-year deal, up to $10 million. It looks like it's an $8 million deal with $2 million in incentives, and we'll get into that as we don't really have the details on all that, but we'll get into that. But first, I want to bring in our awesome guest tonight. Mark Sipos writes for Fansided with the first pick, did a Browns pre-draft primer. We're going to go ahead and bring him on here. Mark, how we doing?
Doing great, Brad. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And it's a big day today for the Browns and getting Clowney in here.
Yeah, no question, man. Awesome stuff. Kind of break all. We're going to start with Clowney for sure here right off the top. So let's just start with that. So, you know, the deal gets done. The Browns, a long courtship here, a couple years back and forth. They actually at one point offered him like $17 million. There's been rumored to be that they offered him like a 3-year, $57 million deal last year at one point. Back and forth, they have him in like last Wednesday. He comes back this week, signs the one-year deal. I actually guessed on Twitter, I said I think it'll be about a $10 million deal with incentives. I said 6 plus incentives. It ends up being 8 plus incentives. Almost nailed it. Now, I'm interested to see if there'll be void years on there and how they're going to roll that signing bonus up, maybe to reduce that cap hit. And I'll get to a little bit more of that here in a minute. But first reactions to the deal getting done today. Jadeveon Clowney signs a one-year deal with the Cleveland Browns.
Well, you know, it's no secret that Andrew Berry has been a fan of Jadeveon Clowney. Like you had talked about going back to last year even. There's a big Clowney watch in Cleveland. You know, I mean, looking back, if you're Jadeveon Clowney, you know, he unfortunately had that injury, didn't have any sacks, didn't look like he really produced. But we're signing Clowney to be more of a Robin role. In Tennessee, he was Batman. We already have Batman and Myles Garrett. You know, the pressure that Clowney is going to be facing in Cleveland is going to be a lot different than he's had in the past. And if you look at his last couple seasons where he had his most success, he had back-to-back seasons of 9 sacks. He had J.J. Watt on the other side. So I think Clowney is just very good in that secondary kind of, you know, sidekick type of role. And, you know, in terms of money-wise, I'm going to say the incentives are definitely games played based. Yes. You know, maybe there's some sack incentives, but, you know, with how good of a run defender he is, and look, if he gets 8 to 10 sacks, that's great. But I think more so he's coming in to help stop the run, keep guys fresh along the defensive line. You know, that's where Tack McKinley's going to come in. You know, we added Malik Jackson. You know, just keep those guys fresh up front. And I think that's going to really help all the players in the long term.
Yeah, no question. I agree. You know, $2 million in incentives. I got to guess at least 1.5 of that is going to be like Brashad, you know, games played bonus. Like he could probably make all 1.5 if he plays like all 17 games. Maybe like $500,000 for like maybe like a sack bonus. That was kind of how it was structured last year with the Titans. I actually posted that on Twitter. You can see that on my timeline. The incentives they had in their contract for him. Obviously, you know, you want him to play. Now, I think a big part of this, and see what you think about this, but you know, people are concerned about the injuries. You know, Clowney is held out, you know, with the Seattle in the year he played in Seattle, and he actually played really well, despite not putting up the sack numbers. He still played excellent football that year. Last year, you know, he was dinged more than often. He played like 8 games or whatever, but you know, no training camp either year. He's a guy that doesn't really want to go to camp. It doesn't seem like. You know, he waits until the last minute. Browns signed him to this contract. They should have him in camp, I think, which is huge. I mean, if you're looking at his injury history and you don't draw a correlation between him being in camp and the injuries, I think that's ridiculous, right?
Yeah, and a thing going back to last season in Tennessee, he was the fifth highest double team edge player in the league. And he was also, I believe, top five, or no, I'm sorry, he was top 10 in terms of pressure rate. So although the sack numbers aren't there, he's still applying pressure. He's still drawing double teams. He's still a very effective player.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, last year with the injuries, he was obviously banged up. And I believe in his press conference media interview today, he said he feels really good. He's glad he actually stopped playing when he did because of his knee. So I think getting a fully motivated, healthy Clowney. I mean, Clowney probably is looking back in hindsight thinking, I should have probably just signed that 3-year deal here last year.
Yeah.
And a lot more money, probably more opportunity. So, I think the fit is really good. I think he seemed very impressed with Andrew Berry as well. I got the impression that he has a great deal of respect for Andrew Berry. And I mean, we've seen Mac Wilson on Twitter talking about it. Malik Jackson's talked about trying to get Clowney brought into the team and stuff. And I think he's going to feel a little bit more at home than maybe he did last year in Tennessee, which would, get him to training camp, get him in earlier into the training program.
Yeah, and no question. I think that's key that they get this deal done now. Now, Charles Robinson, of Yahoo Sports, tweeted out a little bit about this deal today, alluding to that. The Browns cap room was at $13 million. They had about between $5 and $6 million free. Now, if this is why I want to see the details on the contract. If they have void years on this and they rolled the signing bonus up front and they paid him the veteran base, which is what all teams have been doing in this cap crunch off season to minimize, very similar to the Troy Hill deal, right? To minimize the cap impact, they probably wouldn't have to restructure anybody and they'd still have enough money for their draft picks, etc. But if they didn't do that for whatever reason, then you're looking at a potential restructure. Now, Robinson tweets out that a restructure is imminent and that, Sheldon Richardson could be a cap casualty. What is your reaction to that? Because I kind of say bullshit to that.
I agree with that. I think, if anything, you're going to add probably take maybe Richardson's base pay down and add a couple years to it. Maybe extend him more so than cap casualty. That makes a lot more sense to me. But I think there's other ways that Andrew Berry can probably maneuver around the cap in order to keep both Richardson and Clowney.
I'm glad you brought that up because we got in our mailbag last week a lot of questions about why haven't the Browns restructured Landry? Why haven't the Browns restructured Sheldon? They're all restructure candidates, right? My point kind of was I think that Berry doesn't want to restructure any of those, add additional length onto these guys' deals unless he has to, right? A couple
why do it? Why do it if you need to or don't need to?
He's all about flexibility, right? He wants to be flexible going into next season with the ability, by not restructuring Sheldon and not restructuring, Landry or whatever. I think that it allows them to have flexibility. If Sheldon does see a fall off because he is in his 30s, you're not tied to him for any additional years. Why do that if you don't have to, right? Why hamper yourself or tie yourself to somebody unless you don't have to? So I think if they can I think Berry would like to avoid restructuring any contracts if possible. That's why I'm interested to see if this deal, if done properly or if done the cap crunch way with void years, etc., shouldn't need to be restructured anybody else, right? He could probably get this down if we do some quick math, right? $8 million, you take 6 of that, putting it as signing bonus, right? And span that out over 4 years. That's 2 plus the 1. It may be a $3 million cap hit, and you're still under your mark, and you don't have to restructure anybody else on the deal. So I think that might be jumping the gun a little bit there at saying that Richardson could be a cap casualty or even a restructure. I feel like Berry wants that flexibility going into next season, especially with Chubb money potentially on the table and future money that he's going to have to dole out to Denzel Ward and Baker Mayfield, hopefully, that I think he might want that flexibility of being able to say goodbye to a Beckham and freeing up $15 million, or goodbye to a Richardson and freeing up $12 million. What are your thoughts on that?
So I've noticed every signing so far that Andrew Berry's had this offseason, I look at the contract and I think, wow, what a great job he did. Whether it's adding the void years, the John Johnson deal. I mean, so far, in my opinion, he has not missed yet. So obviously we'll see the full details when the Clowney deal comes out. But I'm not really worried about the cap issues because he's shown every signing so far that he knows exactly what he's doing. They have a full plan that they're going to go with. Now, with Richardson, I was a little bit surprised that they gave Malik Jackson, I believe it was $4.5 million. And that was the first time I kind of raised my eyebrows like, that's interesting because, Andrew Berry knows Malik Jackson from their time in Philadelphia together. I believe Malik Jackson and Sheldon Richardson are very similar in age, maybe a year apart or so. In terms of age-wise, okay. So, Jackson has obviously lost a little bit of a step compared to his Jacksonville days. But if push comes to shove and they do need to get Richardson, whether it's a cap or restructure, however, they do have that Jackson plan to fall back on as well.
Yeah. I think Jackson filled the Ogunjobi role, though, in my opinion. So, Ogunjobi walks, Jackson's better than Ogunjobi, and he fills that role. So, I think it would be a mistake to let Sheldon Richardson walk, in my opinion.
My thinking is, and we'll obviously have to see what they end up doing here, is with Andrew Billings coming back, I think, Andrew Billings was pretty good in Cincinnati. And just because he opted out last year, obviously, Browns fans aren't, super familiar with him. So I'm curious to see if they end up actually starting Billings as maybe like a one tech or a nose and having Richardson as that three tech, and then having Malik Jackson and Jordan Elliott kind of rotate in and out that way. So if that's the way they do go about it, then you could always move Richardson and then maybe late camp cut or even another rookie this year, which actually we have one in my mock, and I know we'll get to that in a little bit here. But, they have a lot of different options. And, I mean, the fact that Clowney and Miles can both slide in on the interior, especially in passing situations.
Certainly, yeah.
I think that's very big as well.
I mean, okay, so good points there for sure. You're watching All Eyes on Cleveland, special guest Mark Sipos tonight. He's with the first pick of Fansided. This is the Browns pre-draft primer, but of course we're doing some Jadeveon Clowney react first, and then we're going to get to Mark's article that he wrote on the Browns pre-draft primer. He's got a mock in there, pretty interesting stuff. We're going to break all that down tonight on the show. Hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and the podcast can be found where all popular podcasts are available. All right, so furthermore on the Clowney deal, Browns now have 3 number 1 overall picks on the roster, the only team in the league with multiple number 1 overall picks on the roster. So good stuff there. Let's take a look at kind of their stable now of this defensive line. We talked about some of the depth at defensive tackle. They actually, later on, I'm going to talk a little bit about the other guy they signed today, which nobody's going to pay any attention to, but Sheldon Day, a guy they brought in last year, and they re-signed him today. But I'll do that later. The edge room now basically consists of Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, Takk McKinley. You've got Curtis Weaver, the steal from Boise State. They fleeced Miami on, not paying attention basically. Porter Gustin, of course, will be back. I like that room right there, but there's no long-term solution there unless you're going to bank on Curtis Weaver, and I don't think you can do that. So does this change the way you approach the draft at all, in your opinion, Mark?
Not at all. No. I mean, Curtis Weaver, I love that they picked him up from Miami. Just like you said, it was a total steal. It was almost like catching Miami sleeping. The fact that they got him in here for nothing is great. However, you're absolutely right. You can't trust him as a long-term option. He's not played a snap in the NFL. He slid all the way to the 5th round, I believe, last draft. So, there's reasons for that, obviously. Porter Gustin's nice depth, but yeah, I believe the contract he signs only for 1 year. McKinley and Clowney are both on a 1-year deal. So I think I'm definitely adding an edge in this year's class. Top 3 rounds, probably, at least one. Again, somebody probably with outside versatility, just to continue that mix of different athletes, different guys, just being able to confuse offenses and quarterbacks, just lining up in different things. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch these guys on 3rd and long, seeing what Joe Woods does with that line. It's going to be a sight to see for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they can go with that NASCAR set where you could put 3 edges out there and a Malik Jackson and really go after speed-wise a team. I'm going to let me go off on a tangent here for a minute, okay? So, the Browns are going to get some pushback on this deal. Some fans aren't going to like this deal because Clowney hasn't produced, right? But I would tell them it's disruption, not production, right? He's a disruptor. He sets the edge. He plays the run incredibly well. And he's a freak athlete, right? We're talking about a former number 1 overall pick. If there's anybody else on the field that's going to be able to stand out there and look like Myles Garrett, it's this guy. Imagine him and Myles Garrett walking out on the field together. That's crazy, right? That's insane. They're talking about 2 specimens here. Now, why I think that Barry has honed in on him is for this reason. And I think he's a good fit scheme-wise, okay, with the Browns. And I think they believe that. I think Joe Woods believes that. But also, besides the scheme fit, when you look at the AFC, Mark, and the premier teams in the AFC, you're talking Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, right? Mobile guys that will beat you even if you get to the quarterback, right? A straightaway pass rush, they'll elude them and still make the throw down the field. For me, Clowney is the type of guy that even though he's not a high sack number guy, that disruption or the ability to run down these speedy quarterbacks or tackle guys in the backfield is absolutely huge, or set the edge or play his role, sit back and shadow a guy. He can do all those things that you're going to have to do against mobile quarterbacks, right? Like, you can't run past Patrick Mahomes and leave lanes open for him to run. Clowney is really good at that, right? Like, this is one of those things that he can do. Adding him to this team come playoff time and facing these mobile quarterbacks, I think is part of maybe one of the main reasons they acquired him. I think that he absolutely adds depth to the room and makes Takk McKinley even more of a force, like, because he can just tee off on certain downs, right? Against a maybe less mobile quarterback. But when you're facing a guy like Josh Allen or Mahomes, I think that Clowney becomes absolutely vital to slowing that guy down, keeping him in the pocket, and kind of hemming him in. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, at worst, it doesn't hurt, right? Having more speed on the edge. I mean, not only is Clowney a fast guy, he's huge too. Just like you're saying, he's a physical freak in nature. Myles Garrett might be one of the only few guys in the league that makes Clowney look somewhat average,
Yeah, right.
But yeah, Clowney, the speed is going to be huge. Setting the edge, that's what I think a big reason why he is such a good run defender is he's fast and he sets the edge with purpose and with quickness.
Yeah.
So keeping Lamar Jackson, and we've seen Lamar Jackson struggle staying in the pocket, making passes that, and Josh Allen, Josh Allen struggles with that as well. So keeping those type of guys in the pocket, forcing them to throw into our brand new secondary, I mean, it's just it's great. Great fit. I think Joe Woods is definitely going to cook up some magic this year. I think he got a bit of a rough
first year.
Just a kind of a rough rep. I mean, fans were kind of hard on him a little bit last year.
Yeah, he got dealt a pretty bad hand. Yeah, he got dealt a tough hand there, especially with the way that the injuries piled up on him. I mean, I have faith in Joe Woods, and I think that and this influx of talent, John Johnson, Troy Hill, Walker, these guys will be key for him. Of course, now Clowney as well. All right. So, in your opinion, is this it for free agency, or do you have any other targets out there that you think that they might go after? Say they have a couple $1 million left. Anybody out there in secondary, kind of now tertiary free agency is disruption is a form of production, and that's absolutely right, Mark. I agree with you 100% there. I mean, he's a Sims always says this about Clowney, and when I listen to him, he's a fuck the play up guy, right? Like, he's a guy that will just get back there and screw the play up and make, quarterbacks make tough decisions. All of his tackles in the run game are close to the line of scrimmage. So I'm high on this signing, especially because it allows guys like Tack McKinley, Curtis Weaver, Porter Gustin to play their role, right? You're not asking anybody to step out of their role and do something more than they're capable of doing. And I think that's kind of what this does for that room. Anybody else in free agency you have targeted, maybe that you like? I think the only thing left that they might address would be cornerback. You could maybe go get a veteran corner in free agency, either before or after the draft. I have my eyes on one guy, and I've mentioned him a couple weeks now, but I'll let you say if you have anybody out there that you think is worth kicking the tires on.
So I definitely think cornerback is the highest priority remaining in the offseason. You can't trust Greedy Williams. I mean, he had a so-so rookie season, but nerve shoulder injury is not something that you can play around
with and
right? Feel comfortable. Yeah. Exactly. So you got to add somebody there. Terrence Mitchell's gone. I mean, he was, pretty consistent and played a lot of snaps. That's a lot of snaps you're replacing right there. I think he played over 1,000 snaps last year. So
most snaps of any cornerback in the NFL.
There you go. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a lot of snaps, a lot of football you got to replace. So yes. I'm looking at corner, but prior to Clowney, you could talk maybe a guy like a Malcolm Butler or Richard Sherman, but with money kind of getting tight now, I'm thinking more of like a Garyon Connolly, and that really fits the Andrew Berry type of player, a former first-round pick, still younger, a type of guy, athletic, Connolly's had some success, just inconsistent success. I think, it doesn't hurt. He's a hometown kid, went to Massillon. So I think Connolly's kind of actually the perfect guy I would go for and try and see, maybe add him, another high draft pick, a rookie, and then have him, Greedy, and the rookie battle it out.
Yeah, you make some good points there that he does fit the mold. You see – we're starting to see the trend now with Barry, right? It's all about he go after first round draft picks that maybe haven't panned out, or a guy that maybe hasn't found the right place yet, thinking that this can be the right fit for him, and maybe you get some upside. He's low risk, high reward type signings. 5-star recruit guys that maybe have fallen in the NFL under the table, like Porter Gustin, for example, is one of those guys, right? Like, he was a 5-star recruit. Sheldon Day, the guy we're going to talk about today, he was a huge 5-star recruit. So you're starting to see the trend there with him. He's looking for guys with, elite skills and size and things that you can't coach, that maybe he gets them in the right system, the right coaching, and they take off, right? Exactly. And so I think Conley makes a lot of sense that way. I've been banging the table for Brashad Breeland now for a couple of weeks. I really like him. as a corner, as a guy that has playoff experience, that gets handsy. He's sticky. He gets his hands all over you. He never lets any separation. He was a nightmare for the Browns playing the Kansas City in that game. He was all over our receivers who couldn't get any separation in that game because the refs weren't calling anything and they were just holding and holding and holding. But that's playoff football, right? And Breeland has been there, and he's a physical guy that knows his role. And I think that adding him could be a key add, maybe for cheap. I can't imagine him going for a ton of money. Maybe he'll go back to Kansas City. I don't know. But I think he's a guy with a lot of value, and I would like to see the Browns see what's there with Brashad Breeland. All right, we're going to kind of change, our away from Clowney here a little bit and take a look at your mock draft and your article. So Mark Sipos, our guest here tonight on All Eyes on Cleveland, writes for With the First Pick. And it's a Fansided site, draft site, and he was in charge this year of doing the Browns pre-draft primer. We're going to kind of bring this up here, so we'll go ahead and take a look at some of the work you did here. But more so, than some of this, we want to look at your mock, right? The mocks are fun to look at, and you have, Mark, we've seen a lot of mocks that are very similar. You have a little bit of an unconventional mock, I think, as far as the Browns go, and I think that's good. So we'll get a look at that here, okay?
Yeah, definitely.
So here's the article. Go to Fansided. Go to With the First Pick. Check it out. Mark Sipos. This was 4 days ago. The Browns 2021 NFL Draft Primer. Could Baker get a big target? So you kind of go over some team needs here. They add talent on the defense side of the ball. They've done that a ton. You see I've highlighted some of the stuff that you wrote, looking for an edge, and then you mentioned Clowney here, the pursuit of Clowney. We know that they've signed him now, so some of this is kind of moot. Now you bring up three guys here, top targets for the Browns. You like Gregory Rousseau. Go ahead and tell me a little bit about why you like him.
So with Rousseau, whenever I do a mock draft or whenever I write about the Browns, I always try and put myself in the shoes of Andrew Berry. And one of the things that I noticed last year in the draft is the oldest draft player he drafted was Harrison Bryant, and he was 22. So Rousseau just turned 21 in April. So this month he just turned 21. As a sophomore at Miami University, he had 15 and a half sacks. And that was his first full season kind of as a defensive end, because when he was in high school, he actually played receiver and safety. So It's a totally new position to him. He's so long. Like, if you could build a edge rusher, it would look like Rousseau. I mean, he's long, he's lean, he's got a great bend to him. He didn't test as great as I thought he would at his pro day. However, he didn't test terribly. He had a 1.57 10-yard split, which it was, I believe, the best in this draft class, or tied with the best edges in this draft class. So it was up there, which is a very big thing for edges, getting a burst off the ball at the line of scrimmage. Add a little bit of weight, probably get a little bit stronger. But the really nice thing about Rousseau that I like about him is you don't have to start him right away. You can kind of give him time behind Clowney and McKinley, let him develop some more, let him get groomed behind Miles. And then next year, when Clowney and McKinley are both free agents, Rousseau should be ready to step into that opposite edge of Miles.
Okay. Yeah, Rousseau's tough. He's, it's tough to kind of evaluate. It's such a weird offseason with these opt-out guys, right? Like guys that didn't play football last year. They've been away from football for an entire year. So that's tough. You probably want them to show up well at these pro days, especially because they've been away from football for a year, right? So, did I screw that? Mikey, are you screwing this up here? By the way, Mikey on the ones and twos tonight, as usual. But yeah. All right. So I think we're good there. Yep. All right. So the opt-out stuff is tricky, right? And you got to be careful about that. I think some of these guys getting away from football for a long period of time. I like Rousseau. You make a great point here, though, that am gonna kind of highlight here is that uh, Andrew Barry and one of kind of when you look at their organizational guardrails, which are a couple years old now, one of
Yep.
them just flat out says age matters, right? I think age is a big deal for them. So guys that they want to draft, they want to be young. They don't want to
Yep.
draft 24-year-old guys, and that's kind of part of their guardrails, right? So we know that that's something that they look at. Andrew Barry and Dee Podesta and the front office, right? So I think you bring up a good point there with Rousseau. J.C. Horn, love this guy. Talk a little bit about J.C. Horn and why you have him on here.
So J.C. Horn's actually my number one rated corner that on my board, both in terms of Cleveland guy and just overall.
Okay.
I love the physicality. I love the competitive nature. He's a true corner. He wanted and guarded the number one guys in the SEC. So you're talking guys like Kyle Pitts, you're talking Devontae Smith, you're talking Jalen Waddle, all those type of guys, Kadarius Toney. So he has gone up against the best of the best, and he's held up well. Combine that with his testing, I believe he had a 9.9 out of 10 or so on the relative athletic scoring, which is just a calculator that shows how athletic these guys are. I mean, J.C. Horn tested through the roof, basically. He does get a little grabby, but I think that's something that not only can be fixed, but, it's not as tacky, I guess. In college, the problem is he did have 5 penalties in 7 games. That is something that will need to be worked on, but I really think that his talent alone just makes him so intriguing. And he's just so athletic, and I just think he'd be such a great fit in our defense.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100% that he would be a absolute get for sure if they were able to pull that off there. So let's make sure. All right, 1 second here. Okay. If we are looking at Rashad Bateman here, you have wide receiver Minnesota. We know he's an elite guy, right? Talk about why you like Bateman for the Browns and why that would be a fit for the Browns.
So again, going back to age, he doesn't turn 22 until November. So that's
Right.
Obviously one of the bigger ones. Bateman's actually a little bit bigger than what we have. I think he would walk in, and other than Donovan Peoples-Jones and Kadero Hodge, I guess if you kind of count him towards the receivers, Bateman would actually be one of the bigger ones we have. Higgins signed a 1-year deal. The following year, I believe Landry's contract ends, and then the following year, Odell Beckham's contract ends. So within a span of 3 years, you lose Baker's top 3 wide receivers. So getting a guy like Rashad Bateman who can help you not only in the future, but he can help you now. I know we run a lot of 2 tight end, 3 tight end sets, a lot of 12 and 13 personnel. But having a guy like Bateman just waiting in the wings and learning from Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry and competing with guys like Higgins and Donovan Peoples-Jones. You can have him in a 4 wide receiver set and be very, very comfortable with him as a rookie. And unfortunately, you do have to think about Odell's injury history that he has. Unfortunately, he missed quite a bit of time last year. 2019, he played, but he was also injured. So just something you unfortunately have to keep in the back of your mind. And, you and I talked a little bit about this earlier. Beckham, $15 million might end up being a cap casualty. Maybe with Jarvis as well, depending on the cap situation, what we end up doing. He might be another guy that you could even look into moving for cap purposes as well. But I think Bateman, and it's also just a talent aspect. He's a very good wide receiver. He's very, very crisp on his routes. Yards after catch, he's not going to beat you because he's athletic. He's going to beat you because he's tough and he wants it more than you. I like those type of guys.
Yeah, so I I like him too a lot. Obviously, there's not much not to like there with Bateman. Let's talk a little bit about your draft strategy here before we get into your mock, okay? So,
Yep.
Brown's draft strategy, and I've kind of talked about this with the past couple guests. There's a lot of people out there that will pound the table for best player available no matter what. There's guys that will say, it's all about need. There's guys that will stick to their board no matter what, right? But, when push comes to shove, I think it's kind of a mix. But I also think a key factor, and I won't take credit for this because it wasn't me who said it. It was Jake Burns was on the show, and I asked him the question, and he said it's a combination of best player available and position of value. So there's positions that are more valuable than they're not all created equal, right? Like offensive linemen and linebackers and running backs certainly do not have the value that wide receivers, defensive ends, cornerbacks have. Quarterback, but that's not in our wheelhouse anymore. But those other three positions, right? Cornerback, edge, wide receiver, are positions of high value for any team, right? So I think that you have to take that into account, and that's what you hit there: edge, cornerback, wide receiver, and I think that when you're looking at the Browns. And I'm certain that Andrew Berry is looking at, and we've talked about succession plans, right? You have to have a succession plan at wide receiver. So if a guy comes to you at 26 that's elite, like Bateman, and he's the highest guy on your board, I think you're in a position now after Clowney that you can go ahead and draft a guy like that and be okay. So I think that is part of what this Clowney was, acquisition was all about. Now, before we dive into your mock here, okay, I do think, though, there is no long-term answer at edge, even though you've acquired Clowney. Tack McKinley is not the long-term answer. Maybe Weaver, but we don't know that. I have no problem with them going edge at 26 again if the right guy is there, okay? Now let's take a look at your mock here, okay? And we'll kind of just hit very shortly on each player here, okay? You kind of give me your comments, and then I'll kind of comment on what my thoughts are here. You go, round 1, pick 26, Jalen Phillips. This is a guy that tested out of this world, right, at his pro day. I hate the saying flying up draft boards because, what has changed between the players last game and now? Nothing, right? So why should they be flying up draft boards? But, he's a trendy pick right now because of the elite numbers at his pro day. Talk a little bit why you have Phillips at 26.
So, former 5-star recruit, turns 22 late May. Just athletic freak. I mean, just an elite athlete.
Yes.
He's so smooth in his attack. He's very powerful. He's big. He's 6'5", 260 pounds. That's great size. There's the big elephant in the room, and it's the concussions. Yeah. Now, fortunately for me, I don't have to make that decision as the doctor. And, UCLA, from my understanding, from what I've read, UCLA's got a very specific 3 concussions and you're out. So it's tough. And Phillips has posted that he was fully healthy in Miami, which is great. I mean, that's definitely a good sign. But if Cleveland's doctors are comfortable with them, then I'm comfortable with them. And I think Phillips is the best edge in this draft class. And I think he'd be just an ideal fit across from Miles as that 5-year contract rookie edge opposite of that big contract.
Yeah. So you make great points. I do think he potentially is the best edge in the draft. I got to be honest with you, Mark. I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. I can't do it with the injury risk at this pick, right? Like, I just can't do it. Like,
I get it. Yeah.
I 3 concussions and you're out, and that may be different, and they may evaluate it differently, but, playing the edge position in the NFL is a car crash every play, right? Like, this guy's going to get another concussion. I mean, let's be real about it, right? Like, and at that point, his career is in jeopardy, right? So, I as elite as he is, I just can't do it. I don't even if the doctor said, "Oh, he's good," this and that, but he's good until he hits his head again, right? Like, I mean,
Sure.
I just can't do it. But I see where you're going 100% with the elite, the elite
Yeah,
guy that he is. I like
definitely.
that in your mock here, this is a little bit different. You go wide receiver at 59, which is different from what we've seen, right? Explain to me why you like Elijah Moore at 59.
So I think something that drew a lot of attention earlier in the offseason, but then kind of fell into the back burner with all these signings and stuff is Andrew Berry said he wanted to add speed. And that's what Elijah Moore does, and both offense and defensive side of the ball. But I mean, Elijah Moore brings something that our receiving core doesn't have, and that's just a pure speed burner. I mean, Elijah Moore also has great hands. He had 2 drops last season where he had 86 catches, almost 1,200 yards, and 8 touchdowns. So he's got great hands, very, very tough. He's taking some shots over the field. He's probably got a future in the slot more so than outside. But yes. I think there's the way he can take the top off of a defense, you can probably throw him out there, a little bit, but his home's going to definitely be in the slot. And I think just running different jet sweeps and things like that Kevin Stefanski has shown in the past, I think that's right up Elijah Moore's alley too.
Yeah, I agree. He seems like a good fit. He adds that speed element at 5'9", 170. I don't really care about his size because I just think they need to add speed in general.
Right.
And he's a highly rated guy, right? Like he's a really good route runner. He's going to stretch the field. I like him as a player, certainly. He's highly ranked on most people's boards. So I think that would be a good pick. Now, very interesting again here at round 3, pick 89. So the Browns' 3rd pick in the draft. As in day 2, in the first 2 days they have 4 picks, which is nice, right? No, 6. Is it 6? No, 4.
It's 1,
4.
In the first, yeah.
Yeah, because they have 2 in round 3, 1 first and a second. So. But yeah, Jamar Johnson, safety, Indiana, pro football focused darling here. They love this guy, and tell me why you went with safety with the 3rd pick here.
So Jamar Johnson's one of my favorite players in the entire class. Again, shocker, turns 22 in November.
Right.
He has some versatility. He played slot cornerback in 2019 and then moved back to deep safety in 2020. One thing I do like about him, too, is he actually has experience in a 4-2-5. That actually would be a great fit. I actually see him as a perfect backup to John Johnson as a free safety. Now, John Johnson is obviously a little bit more versatile, can kind of line up in the box and stuff, but Ohio State fans might remember Jamar Johnson because he had 2 great plays against Justin Fields this past year, 2 interceptions. He's a playmaker. He has 7 interceptions and only 796 snaps. And I just really like his talent, his coverage skills, and the way he can flip his hips on a dime and quick is just unbelievable.
Interesting comments from our comment section.
Yeah, I was looking at that.
Yeah, so Big Time Brown says, Denzel Ward still dances around the concussion issue, and I think that Logan makes a good point here that, playing corner is a completely different story than playing edge. I would agree. But I do agree that I was frightened for I was very worried about Ward after his rookie year. I think he had 2 or 3 concussions in his rookie season, but he has not had really an issue with it since then, I don't believe. His injuries have been more soft tissue since then. And Logan makes a good point there that cornerback, you're not going to. But hey, you're on the football field, you're going to get hit in the head. I understand the concern there, in a good comment from both of you, I think, on that topic. Going back to Jamar Johnson here, he's a freaking stud, man. He's a stud. I love this pick for you. It's a smart move because you make some good points, and I'm going to go back here. Sorry, I'm switching around from page to page here, so bear with me, Mikey. All right, so, I highlighted right here, injury concerns are something to keep in mind. This is your writing here. As Grant Delpit is coming off of an Achilles tear, while Ronnie Harrison is yet to play a full schedule going into his fourth NFL season. 2019 fourth-round pick Sheldrick Redwine has shown flashes, but has been inconsistent so far in his two-year career. I'm not a fan of Redwine. I don't think he's long for the roster even, to be honest with you, especially if they added a guy like this. But either way, Jamar Johnson makes sense in that aspect. I think he's a stud and he fits because he's a guy that you could even rotate into this. If he's good enough, if he's as good as advertised, you could rotate him into this, the threesome of Harrison, Delpit, and Joe Johnson, John Johnson the third. God, Jamar Johnson, John Johnson, what a mess that would be, right? Yeah. But yeah, either way, he could rotate in there, get in there. He played in that 4-2-5 scheme you're talking about. He would be a fit, certainly. And you guys are going to get dinged, and I would prefer to keep Sheldrick Redwine far away from the field. So I am cool with that. And then so you don't address here, and let's take a look at this. So probably, in my opinion, the Browns' biggest need, but you don't address it till pick number 4, which is interesting. But I really like the player you go with here, Thomas Graham, junior cornerback, Oregon. Go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, so one of my favorite guys that just when I was doing the mock draft fell to me. Something I really like about Graham is although he isn't 22 until June, he also has 39 career starts in college, which is something that I really like for cornerbacks. Graham's a scheme diverse guy. He can play a little bit inside and outside. Now, Graham doesn't have any experience in the slot, but I think his footwork and quickness will definitely allow him to shift inside if needed. Graham's got a little bit of a competitive fire, a little bit of a confidence type of deal. And I really like that in my corners as well. Now, he's not an athletic freak by any means. And, he's not going to, his agility scores were kind of lower. He's not a super fast guy, but his IQ that he is able to sit on receivers' hips, basically watch them do their routes. I mean, he's kind of, glue to paper sort of. And I really like adding him if we do add a guy like a Gareon Conley or even like a Breeland. I think Graham would be at worst just good depth. I almost compare him actually to another Terrence Mitchell, just not a super athletic guy, but is just going to be really consistent for you.
Okay, very good. You go with him there. Now, addressing the comment section again, I think that, Big Time Brown's commenting here that he would rather look for a guy that can play the role of Ronnie Harrison, right? I think that's what he said. Play the role of Harrison. I think Jamar Johnson can do that. I mean, this is a guy that's very flexible, right? So we're not just talking about a backup for Joe Johnson. He can certainly play that role as well, I think, right?
Yeah, he does have a little bit of tackling issues, but in terms of size-wise, he's 6'1", 6'2", 205. So, I mean, he's got the size to do it. Improve your technique a little bit, and I think he should be fine. And not to play spoiler, but here in a few picks, we'll actually talk about a potential Harrison backup as well.
Exactly. Yeah, I didn't want to, bury the lead there. As he's kind of, Big Time Browns. I love the participation and keep it up, brother. But you kind of you're hitting all these names here, and we're gonna hit to. Don't worry about the typos, brother. But appreciate the participation. I think you're gonna see one of those names here shortly, actually. So let's let's keep on filing through here as I love this pick, right? So, first, the Browns with 2 fourth-round picks. Milton Williams, interior defensive line, Louisiana Tech, 9.6 out of a possible 10 in the relative athletics score, those little boxes that you see on Twitter all the time. This guy is one of my favorites if you're going to go address defensive tackle. So talk about why you like him for the Browns.
Grown men that size should not be able to move how he moves. That's
Exactly.
the first thing that,
Exactly.
it's just unbelievable. Just
It
very,
is.
very scary. The one issue I have with Milton Williams, I actually would love to get your thoughts on this as well, is he's kind of a tweener for me. You know, he's 280 pounds, so he can play both. And that might be something that is good for us, though, you know, because all night long I've been talking about inside-outside versatility, you know. Sheldon Richardson, Malik Jackson both have a year left on their contract, both over the age of 30. Milton Williams, now he had a couple, good years in college, but more so the back half of 2020 was when he really stepped it up. So I think there's more improvement in his game. It's definitely more of a potential type of pick. I'm torn on how I'd want to move with him forward. Do you add 10 to 15 pounds and kind of beef him up as a 3-tech, or is it going to be more of a let's trim down 5 to 10 and make you as a full-time edge? I like the versatility. I think maybe having him on the inside and with a possibility of kicking out is probably his best future. But with a guy that talented and that athletic, it's hard not to take him, especially in the 4th round like that.
Yeah, it's athletic specimen, stuff you can't coach for sure. Like this guy a lot. I think that you would probably I would want him to put on a couple pounds and stay inside, honestly. I don't think you... I mean, Sheldon Richardson has shown the ability. Malik Jackson, throughout their career, have shown the ability when called upon to go play edge. They have done it, right? So it's not like you're saying he can't ever do it, but I would probably want him to play closer to 300 pounds, wouldn't you?
Yeah, he definitely seems like the type of guy that he can add 15 to 20 pounds and not lose much athleticism if at all.
No, man. With the way this guy moves, it's freakish, and I like him a lot. And I think that adding depth, when we talk about succession plans for the Browns, one of the areas that you're going to have to address in the future, and you can start doing it now and getting them reps kind of is, with Sheldon and Malik Jackson's age and not potentially, long, not contract, attached to the organization. I think adding a guy like this makes a lot of sense as far as looking down the road, and I'm sure that's something Andrew Berry is doing. This year is an interesting one here. This is a guy that has a ton of talent. But let's talk about your second pick in the 4th round. You go edge for the first time the second time in the draft, your first overall pick with Jalen Phillips. But Dayo Odeyingbo.
Dayo Odeyingbo, yeah.
Okay.
So Odeyingbo is actually one of my favorites as well, and I was really, really happy that he fell to the 4th round when I was doing this draft. He's huge, 6'5", 6'6", 200. He actually weighed in at 285 pounds at 6'5", so maybe a little bit heavier than he was listed at Vanderbilt, but he's long. He's got a lot of twitch to himself. He sets the edge on the outside. The biggest concern for me right now, other than he actually tore his Achilles in January, so this is going to be a red shirt type of season for him. Just put him on the IR, let him have a full year to get back into shape, get healthy. But he was also in a 3-4 at Vanderbilt, and he didn't dominate as much as his size and athleticism would suggested that he should have. So I think a move to a better scheme and being 100% and just kind of learning from Myles Garrett, from Jadeveon Clowney. I think just the talent that he has and just the length and stuff, he would be a great addition. And he's a different type of edge compared to Jalen Phillips.
So this is the kind of guy that would have gone much earlier in the draft if he did not tear his ACL in January, right? I think I'm right on that.
Achilles, yeah, exactly. He probably would have tested out of the building and probably would have been a second or third.
So he's a long-term commitment, kind of one of those, low risk, high reward guys. 6'6", 276, great burst, great quick, great twitch, like you said. I mean, this guy would have been, first or second round for sure if he doesn't tear his Achilles, as you said, in January. Now, you maybe, as you mentioned in your article here, redshirt him, kind of let him get right, get some snaps here and there, learn from the guys that are there, but he's a potential long-term solution there. But you're investing in his talent in hopes that he recovers properly there. Kind of a interesting pick, but I like it, certainly a guy that could help you in the long run. Now, here's a pick that I really like, and I think that Big Time Browns is going to like here with this next pick. So, Mikey, can you get me back to the other screen? There you go, sir. Thank you. All right. Here we are at pick round 5, pick 169. Diablo, right? Is that how you say his name? Diablo?
Yep, Divine Diablo.
Yeah, I love that, right? That's Spanish for the devil?
I was not very good at Spanish, so
I'm pretty sure Diablo is Spanish for the devil. Anyways, safety / linebacker, Virginia Tech. This guy I like a lot. He's your hybrid guy, right? This guy's straight out of Joe Woods. If he could, craft a player, this is the guy that he would craft, right?
Yeah, this is your Harrison backup right here, definitely. Yes. A type of guy that can play in the box. He ran a 4.45 40, and being 6'3", 226 pounds, pretty dang impressive for having that straight line speed.
Yeah.
And, keeping him at safety, even though his agility and explosion scores were pretty low in that regard. Being a box safety, though, I mean, that's just basically a faster linebacker, sort of. So, in the simplest way. Yep, there you go, Big Time Browns. So, having a guy with that speed would be great. And the thing I really like about Diablo is he has over 700 career special team snaps. And with us losing Tavier Thomas and Tay Davis in free agency, there you go, yep, 739 snaps, okay. Having that experience in the special team as a fifth rounder, he might not get much playing time on the defensive side of the ball, but on special teams, I think he's just going to be just an absolute stud for them.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, too. Where you're taking him in the draft, his potential value in the future, and his ability to jump in and fill special teams right away. Something the Browns, that hasn't been mentioned a lot, but something that the Browns certainly need to improve was their special teams last year, right? Was not great as a whole.
No.
And, guys like Tavier Thomas gone, and I know you're going to mention maybe a replacement for him potentially here in a minute, but that certainly is something that these guys should be able to fill in at. All right, another interesting pick from you. Very interesting picks all the way through. I love a non-conventional mock, right? So round 6, pick 211. Josh Imatorbhebhe?
Sounds
right?
Yeah, it sounds pretty good, yeah.
Okay. Imatorbhebhe. Love this numbers right here that you have. I have highlighted here, 46.5-inch vertical, 24 bench press. Started his career at USC, transfers to Illinois. Talk about him. You have him as the Browns lotto ticket guy, right?
Yeah, so actually these last two picks are a little bit unconventional for me as well. I went more of types of guys that are just super raw athletically, but they might not fit the true Andrew Berry format. So, for example, I'm a toward BB is 23 this month, so a little bit older than what we've seen in the past. However, the athleticism's hard to ignore. I mean, 46 and a half feet. I mean, he almost jumped 4 feet. I mean, that's just insane. Good straight line speed. He's a little bit bigger than what we have. He's 6 foot, 220 pounds. His first year at Illinois, he had 19 yards per reception, 9 touchdowns. This past year, they actually ran the ball more than they passed. Pair that with some inconsistent quarterback play, and your numbers are going to go down. And obviously, a shortened COVID season as well. He needs to kind of learn just how to play football. He needs to learn how to track the ball in the air. He needs to really sharpen his routes. It's going to take a year or two for him to get really, really comfortable. But I think just the explosion and speed that he has is it's too tantalizing to not take in the 6th round here.
Yeah. Interesting guy. Certainly an interesting guy. He's not on, certain people evaluate him differently. Like, you get a wide variety of evaluations on this guy, right? Like, he's not on some guys' list at all, and he's a lot higher on some other guys' list. Like you said, the physical skills are seem to be there. But yeah, you have him, he's a lottery ticket at this stage of the draft. And I agree with that. And, I don't have a problem with them taking a chance on a guy there. We'll talk a little more about that here in a minute when we wrap this up. And I have a couple other things I want to hit with you before we let you go. But if that's all right with you, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely.
You are watching All Eyes on Cleveland tonight. We hit Jadeveon Clowney React with Mark Sipos of Fansided with the first pick. Please hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, and you can listen to the podcast presented by Blue Wire Hustle, where all popular podcasts are found. Back to Mark's mock draft here, which you can find at Fansided with the first pick. This is the Browns pre-draft primer as we are wrapping up the mock here. Robert Rochelle, cornerback, Central Arkansas, with the Browns' last pick in the 7th round. Talk about Rochelle here.
Yeah, I first really started noticing Rochelle when I was watching some Trey Lance tape, and he just really stuck out to me. And just the more I dug into him, the more I really liked him. Just a very, very athletic guy. Had a 9.65 RAS score out of 10. Yeah. Just very, very athletic. He is a little bit out of that age range again. He turned 23 this month as well. However, he's so athletic. And the issue with Rochelle right now is the reason he was so good at the Division II level was he was by far the most athletic guy. In the NFL, there's going to be guys that are comparable athletic-wise. He's not a technician. He's not somebody who's going to have perfect form. So bringing a guy in like that and just putting him basically last on the depth chart at cornerback, but having him on special teams would just be somebody to develop on that back end. But I mean, his athleticism would make him just absolutely awesome on special teams.
Yeah, he could be a special teams guy with his athleticism, and he's raw as far as his corner. He's not polished, as a corner, and that's something though that can come after you draft him, and something that you're going to get with maybe a 7th round pick, right? So, good job there. I like a lot of your picks here, Mark. Let me get Mikey. Can we get back to the regular screen here, buddy? Thank you, sir. All right, so. Good job by Mikey there. Thanks, buddy. And then, so I like your mock a lot, Mark, in that it's unconventional. If I run through it here a little bit, so here's where I don't like the Jalen Phillips pick just because of the injury concern. I think he's a freak. I think he's a great player, but I just wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole because of the injury stuff. I think that the Browns need to address corner, I guess, probably sooner than you do in the draft. And I guess that would be one issue that I have. I think that with this corner class, which is a deep corner class, you could go at pick 59 and get a guy that can probably start, or if Greedy has another injury issue. I mean, the stuff with the Greedy scares me, right? That the nerve stuff is no joke, and I think that getting a replacement for him or getting somebody that can contribute as a wide corner. We know Troy Hill can slide out there, but I'm drafting 2 corners in the first 5 rounds in this draft if I'm Andrew Berry, because I want a guy that is better than MJ Stewart to back up Troy Hill, because for me MJ Stewart's slow and short, and I just need a better athlete in there to back up Troy Hill in the slot, and I need a corner that can play if Greedy doesn't work out. That's why I mentioned Brashad Breeland earlier, but I think I'm leaning towards, probably now that the Clowney deal is done, and I know you did this before that, but tell me what you think about this. I mean, I think that these 9 picks, 9 guys aren't going to make this roster. So if I'm the Browns, I'm taking draft capital and going up to get the guy I want in the first round, or if the guy you want falls to you at 26, that gap between 26 and 59 is like gonna be a perfect area to get the kind of edge or corner you want that can contribute for you. Go up and get the guy that you're in love with there. And I think that those 2 picks and being aggressive there to get edge corner or wide receiver corner there makes a ton of sense for me. By the time you've addressed the end of day 2, and you basically did this because you hit edge, wide receiver, safety, corner, I think that with the exception of safety maybe there, and Jamar Johnson is a guy I love, so I can't really complain there. But I think that I would probably think more along the lines of cornerback, edge, wide receiver, interior defensive line maybe is kind of what I would think, but or corner again, even just because this class is so deep. But I love the unconventional mock. I think that they do need to address wide receiver. I love it that you do it at 2. I think if they've put themselves in a position, Mark, Barry has, that he can take a receiver that he loves that high at this point in the draft, because they could really run their defense out right now and be cool, right?
Yeah.
I just think my main concern is that outside corner spot. Let's see what Big Time Browns is saying here. Sean Wade, Kerry Vincent Jr., Darren Hall, Ambry Thomas, all as backup nickel corners. I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think that
I'm an Ambry Thomas fan. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like a ton of these corners in this draft. Let me bring some guys up here that I don't have to bring them up and show it to you, but we can just kind of look at some of the corners that I think might be there real quick, and then we'll get you out of here. I want to get your reaction to what I'm saying here about this stuff. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Here, bear with me. Okay, so we know Surtain is going to be probably gone. In the top 10, probably. I think Horn might be off the board before the Browns draft at 26. Yep. But Greg Newsome, I love a ton. If Farley falls to them with his back issue, I think he's a guy that you could certainly think about at 26. I really love those guys there. If those guys aren't there and Azeez Ojulari is there at 26, I'm drafting him, right? Like, I love the Ojulari, Newsome, Farley for guys that I'm targeting at 26. In that second round there, I like, Asante Samuel Jr. could be there. I don't know if Tyson Campbell will be there. I really love Tyson Campbell as a corner for the outside.
Melifonwu will probably be there.
Yeah, Melifonwu will be there. But Tay Gowan is a guy that I'm absolutely in love with his size and freakish length. But he may last longer in the draft because he's a little raw. But big fan of Tyson Campbell. Maybe if he's there in the second round, I'm trying to scoop him up. I just think that they took Campbell and a lot of guys like Stokes too, the other guy from Georgia, but Tyson Campbell from Georgia, they sent him out there time after time on guys like Devontae Smith and the Jamar Chase and said, you just go guard him, on an island.
Have fun. Yeah.
And he was right in their hip pocket. He's got that straightaway speed that is hard. You can't teach. He's got those greasy hips. To me, he's an outstanding corner that a lot of people are missing on, and I think that they could scoop him up in that second round, or maybe even go up and get him if he's there. I would love that because I think he's an elite guy that some guys don't evaluate the same way.
So circling back, I did, like you had mentioned, did the draft before the Clowney signing. The thing with Ojulari that I bring a different aspect is Porter Augustin was our lightest edge last year. He weighed 257 pounds. Olajari is about 10 pounds less. So
so it's Joseph Asai.
I think Asai actually, he weighed in a little bit higher than I thought. I think he was around 255 or so.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit surprising, actually, compared to what he was listed. But that's just something I've noticed from Barry is he likes bigger edges like that.
I agree. And I think that here's the thing with Ojulari and Asai that I like is just when you're playing in this scheme, right, and some will say that those guys are more of an outside linebacker edge than a 4-3 edge. But I mean, if you watch Ojulari, he puts his hand in the ground and he has that bend. He has that get off, and Osai flies. I mean, Osai's burst and speed is insane, and I think he's a guy that could be there in the second round as well. So that's why I like those guys, and I think that the weight issue is something that is easily fixed in the NFL. You get in the NFL weight room, you want them to put on 15, 20 pounds, they can do it and play that edge opposite Myles Garrett. So I like Ojulari, I like Asai. I'm not scared off those guys because of their weight, but I understand where you're coming from.
Sure.
I think that what you did a really good job of, Mark, is, in your mock, you did a really good job of looking at Barry's guardrails and trying to predict what he will do, right? Age, what he likes, 5-star, traits, guys that, that he likes weight-wise, age-wise, size-wise, what fits the roster. You did a really good job of doing that, and you also accounted for the future, right? Elijah Moore, Jamar Johnson, and filling in spots that make sense. Milton Williams, of course, the guys that fit future-wise, and even addressed special teams with Diablo and Imitor Bebe and Rochelle. So I think it's a great mock, very interesting to break down, and I think you did a really good job on this piece. I know you're really proud of it, and I think it's awesome stuff. Everybody go check it out at Fansided with the first pick, and it's his pre-draft primer, Mark Sipos. Follow him at Twitter at Mark_Sipos4. And Mark, we're going to send you an All Eyes on Cleveland t-shirt for coming on the show, brother.
All right. Hey, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. So we'll have you DM me your... So we just sent one, and I have to bring this up so we had Troy Hill on the show after he signed, right? And so we sent him and his representation their All Eyes on Cleveland t-shirt. So we hope to keep your guys' eyes out for Troy Hill. Maybe he'll wear the shirt like somewhere where you can see him. So I already talked to his representation. I was like, take a picture of him if he's ever wearing it
Nice.
and send it to me. So, we've had Eric Metcalf, was wearing one once. So we'll send you one, and for coming on the show. But kudos on the Browns pre-draft primer piece. I just kind of wanted to throw you some of my thoughts on the draft and get your react on that stuff. I think you make a good point about those guys' weights. Any final thoughts for us before we get you out of here, Mark?
Yeah, I just, I like taking looks at different mock drafts and different perspectives, try and put myself in other people's shoes, just like Andrew Berry, and think a little bit outside the box. And I think that Andrew Berry is a tough one to crack too. Last year I thought I had him kind of an idea about him, and I did not. So I think this year I learned a lot more about what his idea and philosophies are. And hey, it's a lot of fun to do, especially now that we're coming off a playoff win and looking like we're pretty close to being a contender. And it's a lot of fun. I really appreciate you having me on. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, man, we'll have you back for sure. And you did a great job, awesome job tonight, and really well done. So we'll get you up and out of here. I'll get your info, and big thanks, applause, and thanks for Mark. I appreciate you, brother. And we'll be right back with finish up here tonight on All Eyes on Cleveland after this short break. Mikey, can you get me out of here? Mikey. And we're back. All Eyes on Cleveland Wednesday night. Pre-draft primer edition from Mark Sipos of With the First Pick. Big thanks to Mark coming on, lending us his piece to break down and take a look at his mock draft, and just kind of, he did a really good job of staying within the Barry guardrails, and I think he did a really good job of putting himself in those shoes. And it's an unconventional mock, and I love taking a look at some unconventional stuff sometimes. It's not the same cookie-cutter stuff that we see every week from the mainstream guys. So well done from Mark there, and he did an excellent job on the show. So we'll get him that T-shirt and have him back. As I mentioned, Troy Hill got his All Eyes on Cleveland T-shirt. When he was on the show, if you recall, he said he wanted to wear the number 23. Today, we see on his Instagram, on the placard, the number 23 with the Browns. So Troy Hill will wear number 23 for the Browns. Friend of show, and I've stayed in communication with his representation, so they got their T-shirts. Hopefully they'll wear the All Eyes on Cleveland T-shirt. Would be pretty cool. So, but yeah, he got number 23. We talked about that. That he kind of let that slip with, is Sendejo going to be here? This and that, right? And we didn't really know what that was all about because he brought up Sendejo having the number, and we were kind of like, wait a minute, are they going to bring back Sendejo here in the future? And but he does have the number now that's been assigned to him, as he posted that on his Instagram. The placard, I think, by his locker or somewhere in the building there for Troy Hill. Wanted to talk real quickly about the other guy today, besides Clowney, that the Browns signed. Another guy that he was already on the Browns, but they have signed him back. His name's Sheldon Day. He's an interesting guy. Defensive tackle, 6'1", 285, age 26. Drafted in the 4th round by Jacksonville. In 2016, he played 126 snaps there for a year and a half, or a season and a half, and they waived him. The 49ers picked him up and put him right in the rotation. Now, that's where the connection comes with Joe Woods, because at the time, Woods was the DB coach. Saleh was their defensive coordinator. He played 6 games for them in their Super Bowl season, or Super Bowl appearance season. Day was there, played 6 games as part of the rotation, 12 solo tackles, 4 assisted, 1 sack. That team went to the Super Bowl. In the offseason, the Colts signed him to a 1-year deal. He got hurt, ended up on the IR, and then just the practice squad when he came back, rehabbing that injury. The Browns signed him in December of last year when they were going through the COVID, churning of the bottom of the roster there with all the guys getting laid up there. And then he ended up on the practice squad. His contract expired after the season in January, and today the Browns re-signed him. So they will have him back in camp. He's a guy with some playing experience. He's young. He's 26. He fits that defensive tackle role. Somebody that can be nice competition in camp because he's played. He's played big downs for San Francisco, familiar with Joe Woods' scheme. So an interesting bring back and one that I like. This guy that was a 4th round draft pick that, hasn't really panned out, but has played some experience, some big downs in Jacksonville and in San Francisco with Day. Final thoughts here tonight. We talked about the Troy Hill thing. We talked about his thing, Mark's mock. We talked about Jadeveon Clowney at the top. Final thoughts on Clowney again. And I already talked about this a little bit. But why I think this works for the Browns and why I think Barry loves it is, he's going to fill a role. But once again, top of the AFC, mobile quarterbacks, Mahomes, Allen, Jackson. Clowney is a guy that will wreak havoc on your plays, make tackles close to the line of scrimmage, get in the backfield and chase these guys around, make them uncomfortable in the pocket. In order to win playoff time or against the elite teams in the AFC, you're going to face off against these mobile quarterbacks that get through the running lanes, that beat teams with their legs. Lamar Jackson has done it. Mahomes has done it. Allen has done it. And these are the guys that you're going to have to beat to be an elite team. And I think that what he brings as a guy that gets in the backfield and just fucks shit up is huge for the Browns. He will do that on a regular basis if he's healthy, right? And I think that's absolutely huge. And he's going to see one-on-ones all day long, and hopefully he can beat up on some of those guys, and also allows Tack McKinley to be a guy that can, if you have a more mobile quarterback in there that can tee off and just go after the quarterback. It allows them to put together some really, really interesting packages with the versatility of Sheldon Richardson and Malik Jackson. As far as Charles Robinson's comments on the restructure, I've tried to have Charles Robinson on the show a million times. I just can't ever get him to write me back. But the restructure that he mentions of Sheldon Richardson, let's see the contract from Clowney. May not be necessary. My favorite free agent target out there, once again, Brashad Breeland. Love the guy. Hope they would, kick the tires on him. I don't know if that'll happen or not. But I wouldn't be surprised if they see what's out there on the market still at the corner level before the draft. That would just unload even more of any kind of lean that Barry has to a certain position, like he feels like he needs to address. Like right now, I feel it's corner for sure, right? Like I'm all for using draft capital to go up and get an elite corner because I can't trust. Greedy Williams has an availability problem, and let's be honest, so does Denzel Ward. So let's get somebody else in here that can play wide corner. And I definitely want somebody better than MJ Stewart backing up Troy Hill. Should he have to slide outside or get stinged for a game. This draft and this third fourth free agency wave, veteran minimum guys that you can get on deals and stuff like that should allow the Browns to really, really add depth and keep churning the bottom of that roster to make sure that they are putting out an elite roster, which it already is at this point. Let's be real. This Clowney signing is huge. So I love it, and not too expensive. I said $6 million, 10 with incentives. It ends up being 8, 10 with incentives. So I think that's right in the wheelhouse of where the Browns were going to go, and I'm totally fine with that price for him. And if he plays and takes advantage of some of those incentives, it'll be worth every penny, I think. So, Barry's wanted this guy so badly, and he's got him now, and I think that is absolutely key. Thank you so much for watching All Eyes on Cleveland. Big thanks to Mark Sipos of With the First Pick. He did a tremendous job and loaning his mock, to pick apart, and that's always, a risky proposition, but he did a great job and handled it well, and we appreciate him coming on the show. We're going to send him an All Eyes on Cleveland t-shirt as well. I thank you all for commenting tonight. Great contribution from the listeners and watchers here on All Eyes on Cleveland. Hit subscribe on your way out, and we will be back tomorrow night with another show. We will probably have an excellent guest. It's not nailed down yet. We're working on it. Mikey's working on it. We'll get it figured out. But we'll be back with another show tomorrow night, regardless. Love you guys. Go Browns. Thank you for watching. All Eyes on Cleveland again, presented by Blue Wire Hustle. For Mikey on the ones and twos, my name is Brad Ward. We are out.